The glass walls of Raventech Tower reflected the dying sun like molten gold. Inside, the 57th floor pulsed with quiet efficiency, assistants typing furiously, phones buzzing in muted tones. At the center of it all was Elena Raven, the billionaire CEO whose name graced the building. She was the definition of control, perfectly pressed ivory suit, diamond studs, and the kind of cold composure that made board members nervous. But today, her mind wasn't on quarterly projections. Her 6-month-old daughter, Lily, was upstairs in the executive nursery. Elena never allowed strangers near her baby. Only vetted nannies with triple background checks were permitted. Still, there was an ache in her chest every time she thought about Lily spending her days without her. "You're doing this for her," she told herself. "You're building her future." She finished her last meeting, heels clicking against the marble floor as she made her way to the nursery suite. She pushed the door open, and froze. A tall man sat in the rocking chair by the window. His hair was messy, the kind that refused to stay tamed, and his shirt sleeves were rolled up to reveal strong forearms. But what stole her breath was the sight of Lily, nestled in his arms, drinking from a bottle he held with surprising tenderness. Lily's eyes were half-closed in bliss. "Who the hell are you?" Elena's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. The man looked up slowly, calm in a way that infuriated her. "Name's Daniel Cole," he said, voice deep but gentle. Lily was crying. "The nanny had to take a call, so I stepped in." "You stepped in?" Elena took a step forward, her pulse hammering. "You don't just step in with my child. Security should have." She was choking on her own sobs. Daniel interrupted, his tone unwavering. "I didn't think you'd want me to wait for protocol while your daughter gasped for air." Elena's breath caught. Her gaze flicked to Lily, who was now safely fed and yawning. Still, her instincts screamed. "You're trespassing in a restricted floor." Daniel gave a faint, humorless smile. "Funny. I was told to wait here by HR." It turned out Daniel was interviewing for a maintenance supervisor position. His sister worked in HR and had asked him to wait near the nursery instead of the crowded reception. The nanny, panicked by a call about her father's accident, had stepped away for 5 minutes. 5 minutes that had changed everything. Elena should have dismissed him immediately, but something about his composure gnawed at her. Most men either fawned over her wealth or shrank under her glare. Daniel did neither. "Why do you know how to hold a baby like that?" she demanded. He adjusted Lily's blanket with practiced ease. "Because I have a 2-year-old son. Single dad." The words hit her harder than she expected. They stood there, two strangers bound by the same scar, raising a child alone. Later that night, Elena couldn't shake the image of Daniel with Lily. Her mind replayed the way his large hands had cradled her tiny daughter. She looked him up. Construction foreman turned odd-job worker after a site accident ended his career. His wife had died giving birth, leaving him with an infant and medical debt. No scandals. No criminal record. Just a man who'd been dealt too many blows. The next morning, she offered him the maintenance job. He hesitated. Most people didn't say no to 6 figures, but finally accepted. And so Daniel became a shadow in her building, fixing broken vents, replacing light panels, and, occasionally, stopping by the nursery. Lily adored him. And that terrified Elena. Weeks passed. Elena's armor began to crack. She noticed the way Daniel never treated her like a queen to be appeased. If she was wrong, he said so. If she was working too late, he told her to go home and be a mother. One evening, she found herself in the break room with him. He was fixing the coffee machine while she sipped tea. "You're always working," he said without looking up. "That's what keeps this building standing." "No," he said, meeting her eyes. "What keeps this building standing is people. People like your staff. People like you. But also, People like Lily, who remind you why you're here." Something in his gaze made her feel seen in a way that both comforted and scared her. It was raining hard the night everything changed. Elena stayed late finalizing a deal worth billions. Around midnight, she finally went to get Lily, only to find the nursery empty. Panic roared in her ears. She was halfway to calling security when Daniel appeared, drenched, carrying Lily wrapped in his jacket. "She had a fever," he said, out of breath. "The nanny was off today. I found her flushed and crying. You didn't answer your phone." Elena realized her phone was still on silent from the meeting. "I took her to the pediatric ER," Daniel continued. "They said it's an ear infection. She'll be fine." She didn't even know she was crying until he stepped closer. "You can hate me for overstepping," he said quietly, "but I'd do it again." Instead of answering, Elena reached for Lily, then, before she could stop herself, hugged Daniel. From that night, things shifted. They started having lunch together, sometimes with Lily, sometimes without. Daniel told her about his son, Noah, a whirlwind of energy with eyes like his father's. Elena told him about the loneliness of her wealth, the way people only saw the empire, not the woman. And slowly, the billionaire and the single dad stopped being just strangers who had once collided in a nursery. One Saturday, she invited Daniel and Noah to her estate. Watching their children play together under the summer sun, she felt something deep and terrifying, hope. But the world noticed. Tabloids ran with headlines, "Billionaire heiress and her building's handyman?" Her board questioned her judgment. When Daniel saw the headlines, he offered to resign. "You don't need this kind of heat," he said. But Elena shook her head. "I don't care about the heat. I care about you." Then came the hardest decision. Elena was offered an expansion deal in Singapore, 2 years abroad, hundreds of millions at stake. She could take Lily, but Daniel couldn't follow without leaving his son behind. On the night before she had to give her answer, she stood in her office, staring at the city. Daniel walked in quietly. "You'll regret it if you stay for me," he said. "Go build your empire." "I'll regret it if I leave you," she countered. For the first time since she met him, Daniel looked unsteady. "I don't have much to give, Elena. Just me, my boy, and a heart that's already yours." The words settled in her chest like an anchor. She realized then that the empire she was building meant nothing if it stood alone. The next morning, the press expected her to announce the Singapore deal. Instead, Elena stepped up to the podium and shocked everyone. "I'm choosing to expand here at home," she said, "because no deal is worth more than the people we love." That evening, she met Daniel in the nursery. Lily was sleeping peacefully. Noah was curled up on the couch with a book. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "You sure about this?" She smiled. "Completely." He reached for her hand, and for once, Elena Raven, the woman who had everything, realized she finally had something money could never buy. Months later, the four of them were sitting in the park, Daniel pushing Noah on the swing while Elena fed Lily. A stranger passed by, recognizing her from the business magazines. "You're Elena Raven, right? The billionaire?" She glanced at Daniel, who was laughing with his son, and at Lily cooing in her lap. "No," she said softly. "I'm just a mom." Sometimes the most unexpected moments, like walking in to find a stranger feeding your baby, aren't accidents at all. They're the beginnings of the life you didn't know you were waiting for.